It's 2:26 in the morning. Inside Cheyenne Mountain, buried under 2,000 feet of granite in Colorado, a missile warning officer stares at radar screens. He's been on duty for 9 hours straight. His eyes burn. His coffee tastes like metal. And then, his console erupts. The code on his screen is not exercise. It's not test. It says actual. His display is showing Soviet submarines launching ballistic missiles off both coasts, then ICBMs lifting from Siberia. A coordinated strike, over 200 warheads inbound. He has less than 3 minutes to verify this data, report it up the chain, and recommend retaliation. If he says confirmed, B-52 bombers at bases across America will start their engines. Missile launch officers will remove authentication codes from locked safes. Ballistic missile submarines will rise to launch depth. If he hesitates, and this is real, 80 million Americans could be lost without warning. If he acts, and this is wrong, he could trigger the nuclear exchange that ends human civilization. There is no rewind. The Soviet missiles, if they exist, are already in flight. The clock is counting down, right now. Before the alarm went off, this was just another graveyard shift. The officer sits in the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, deep inside Cheyenne Mountain. The room is cold. Industrial air conditioning runs 24 hours a day to keep the computers from overheating. The fluorescent lights hum. The air smells like ozone and stale cigarette smoke from the break room down the hall. His station is one of 12 consoles arranged in rows facing a massive projection screen that shows the entire northern hemisphere. Green phosphor displays, blinking cursors, physical toggle switches with red and white labels, a rotary phone with a direct line to Strategic Air Command, a 3-ring binder marked Top Secret in faded red letters. He is a missile warning officer. His job is simple and terrifying. Watch for Soviet launches, verify the data, and report immediately. Not quickly, immediately. Because intercontinental ballistic missiles travel at 15,000 miles per hour. A submarine-launched missile fired from 200 miles off the East Coast will reach Washington, D.C. in under 10 minutes. An ICBM launched from Siberia crosses the North Pole and hits Montana in 28 minutes. That means the window between detection and impact is measured in heartbeats. His console watches feeds from early warning satellites, over-the-horizon radar systems, and ground stations scattered across the Arctic. If anything looks like a launch, he sees it here first. He confirms it. He reports it up. And then the entire nuclear response infrastructure of the United States wakes up. He doesn't make decisions. He passes information. But the information he passes could change everything in an hour. That's the job. He's been doing this job for 18 months. He's run drills every week. He's never seen a real alert. Nobody he knows has ever seen a real alert. The Cold War is a machine designed never to be used. But it's always running, always ready, every second of every day. He rubs his eyes. He checks the wall clock, 2:25 a.m. 5 more hours on shift. He takes another sip of coffee. It's cold now. He doesn't care. And that's when every screen in front of him lights up red. To understand what happens next, the chain must be understood. The United States and the Soviet Union have built nuclear arsenals large enough to destroy each other multiple times over. Thousands of warheads, missiles in silos, missiles on bombers, missiles on submarines prowling beneath the Arctic ice. But neither side wants to actually use them. What they want is deterrence. The promise that if one launches, the other will respond. Mutual assured destruction, MAD. For that promise to work, the other side has to believe it. They have to know that even if they launch a perfect surprise attack, even if they vaporize Washington, D.C.,
New York, and every missile field in the Great Plains in the first 15 minutes, the response will still come. That means nuclear forces must be able to respond before incoming missiles arrive, which means decisions have to be made in minutes, not hours, minutes. Here's how the latter works. Step 1. Early warning systems detect what looks like a launch. Satellites watching for the infrared signature of rocket exhaust, radar arrays sweeping the horizon for incoming objects. Step 2. That data flows into command posts like this one inside Cheyenne Mountain. Officers receive the alert. They verify it with multiple sensors. They confirm the trajectory, the timing, the threat level. Step 3. If they say, "This is real," the report moves up to higher command. NORAD leadership, Strategic Air Command, the Joint Chiefs. Step 4. They assess. They call the president. The president has minutes to decide whether to authorize a counterstrike. Step 5. If the order is given, authentication codes are transmitted to every nuclear-capable platform in the U.S. military. Bomber crews at air bases in the Midwest scramble to their aircraft. They spin up engines on B-52s loaded with nuclear cruise missiles and gravity bombs. They taxi to runways and wait for the go code to take off. Missile launch officers deep underground in reinforced silos across Montana, Wyoming, and North Dakota receive emergency action messages. They open red safes. They remove sealed envelopes. They begin the unlock sequence for Minutemen ICBMs, each one carrying 3 independently targetable warheads. Ballistic missile submarines, Ohio-class boats carrying 24 Trident missiles, each with 8 warheads, come to communications depth. They authenticate the launch order. They prepare to fire. The entire process from initial alert to weapons leaving their platforms can happen in under 8 minutes. 8 minutes. That's how fast the machine runs. Now here's the terrifying part. The system is designed with redundancy. Multiple sensors, multiple confirmation steps, multiple people who have to agree. But redundancy only works if the data is accurate. If the satellites are lying, if the radar is hallucinating, if the computers are processing garbage, but that garbage looks authenticated, formatted correctly, verified by protocol, the rest of the chain treats it as truth. Officers are not expected to second-guess the technology. They are expected to read the display, follow the checklist, and report what they see. Speed matters more than doubt. Because if the Soviets actually launch and 90 seconds are wasted wondering if it's a mistake, that's 90 seconds not used to get bombers off the ground before Soviet warheads destroy the runways. That's 90 seconds where retaliatory missiles sit in silos that are about to be obliterated. Hesitation undermines deterrence. Hesitation could mean millions of casualties. So the system trains officers to act fast, trust the instruments, follow the protocol. Which means if the instruments lie, the protocol will carry that lie all the way to nuclear launch. And at 2:26 a.m. on November 9, 1979, the instruments are lying. The officer just doesn't know it yet.
The alarm is a harsh, oscillating tone, like a submarine dive klaxon. It cuts through the hum of ventilation and computer fans. The officer's chest tightens before his brain even registers what's happening. He looks at his console. The main display is updating. New tracks appearing. Red icons. Dozens of them. Submarine-launched ballistic missiles. SLBMs. Off the East Coast. Off the West Coast. Launch indicators from the Atlantic and Pacific simultaneously. His hands are already moving. He's not thinking. He's following the script he's rehearsed 200 times. He pulls the red binder. Emergency procedures. Tabs color-coded by threat type. He flips to Section 3. SLBM multiple detection. His eyes scan the checklist. Verify sensor confidence. High. Cross-reference trajectory data. Confirmed. Check authentication codes. Valid. His screen says all 3 are green. The officer next to him, Davis, a captain he's worked with for 11 months, is reading his own display. His voice is tight. I have the same data. Multiple SLBM launches, east and west coasts. Time to impact under 10 minutes. The first officer reaches for the red phone. Direct line to NORAD Command Authority. He lifts the receiver. His hand is shaking. He can feel his pulse and his throat. The voice on the other end is calm. Go. He reads from the script. This is Station 6. We have multiple confirmed SLBM launch detections from hostile submarines. Authentication valid. Confidence high. Recommend immediate alert posture. There's a pause. Half a second. It feels like an hour. Acknowledged. Stand by for confirmation request. The line stays open. He looks at the clock. 2:27 a.m. According to his screen, Soviet missiles are in the air. Warheads are arcing through the upper atmosphere right now. In less than 10 minutes, they will begin re-entering over American cities. He looks at Davis. Davis looks back. His face is pale. "Do you believe this?" Davis asks, quietly. The first officer doesn't answer. He's staring at his screen. Because something feels wrong. The tracks are clean. Too clean. The timing is perfect. All launches happening within seconds of each other. A textbook first strike. But he's read intelligence briefs. He knows Soviet doctrine. They don't coordinate submarine launches like this. Their boats operate independently. A real attack would be ragged, staggered. This looks like a simulation. But the authentication codes are valid. The system says actual, not exercise. He glances at the projection screen. Other stations are lighting up now. ICBM tracks from Siberia. The count is climbing. Over 200 warheads inbound. His brain is trying to make sense of this. If the Soviets are launching everything, submarines, ICBMs, the entire arsenal, that's not a military strike, that's extinction. And there's been no political warning, no crisis, no buildup. Yesterday was a boring Thursday. Today is supposed to be a boring Thursday. This doesn't make sense. But his training is screaming at him. It doesn't have to make sense. He's not an analyst. He's a warning officer. He reports what the machines tell him. He reports it now. The red phone crackles. Station 6, this is command. We need final confirmation. Are your displays showing active threat? His mouth is dry. He looks at the screen one more time. Actual. SLBM launch detected. Confidence high. He closes his eyes for half a second. He opens them. He says the words. Confirmed. Active threat. SLBM launches detected both coasts. We assess this as a coordinated first strike. Copy. Stand by. The line goes quiet, but it doesn't disconnect. He sits back in his chair. His shirt is soaked with sweat. And somewhere above him, on air bases, in missile silos, in submarines under the ocean, the machine he just woke up is starting to move. At Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, a siren tears through the pre-dawn darkness. Bomber crews jolt awake. Boots hit the floor. Men are running, not jogging, sprinting across the tarmac toward B-52 Stratus Fortresses parked in reinforced shelters. Ground crews are already pulling engine covers. Fuel trucks are moving into position. Weapons officers are unlocking vaults where nuclear gravity bombs are stored. The base commander has received a flash message from Strategic Air Command. Prepare for alert launch. Possible hostile inbound. Pilots climb into cockpits. Engines begin to whine as they spool up. Checklist calls echo over the radio. Pre-flight checks that normally take 40 minutes are being compressed into 4. These bombers carry live nuclear weapons, AGM-86 cruise missiles, B-61 gravity bombs. Each aircraft is loaded with enough firepower to destroy multiple cities. And right now they are preparing to take off. If they receive the go code, they will launch, fly to pre-assigned holding points near Soviet airspace, and wait for final confirmation. If that confirmation comes, they will penetrate Soviet radar and release their weapons. The crews know this. They've trained for it. But none of them ever believed it would actually happen. Until now. One pilot, a major with 19 years in the Air Force, is gripping his throttle so hard his knuckles are white. His co-pilot is reading from the authentication checklist. They both speak only to confirm procedures. They are professionals. They will do their job. But both of them have families, kids. The major's daughter is 8 years old. She's asleep 200 miles away. He pushes the thought down. He focuses on the instruments. Meanwhile, 70 feet underground in a missile silo outside Great Falls, Montana, 2 officers sit in a launch control center. The capsule is small, 10 feet by 15 feet, 2 chairs, 2 consoles, a locked red safe bolted to the wall. An alarm has sounded. A message has appeared on their screen. Strategic Air Command Emergency Action Message. Authentication required. The 2 officers, both lieutenants, both in their 20s, follow protocol. They retrieve the locked authenticator binders. They open them simultaneously, reading aloud to each other. They compare codes. The codes match. The message is real. They remove keys from the red safe. They insert the keys into their consoles. They do not turn them yet. But they are now in the preliminary stage of a launch sequence. If they receive the final order, they will turn those keys within 2 seconds of each other. The Minuteman III missile above them, buried in a hardened silo, armed with 3 nuclear warheads, will ignite. It will rise from the Montana plains and arc toward targets in the Soviet Union. One of the officers is thinking about his training. The other is thinking about his family in California. Neither says anything. They sit. They wait. Their hands are on the keys. Somewhere in the North Atlantic, a ballistic missile submarine, USS John Adams, receives an emergency action message via VLF radio. The captain authenticates the message with his executive officer. They open sealed envelopes. They compare authentication codes. The message is valid. The boat goes to alert status. The missile control panels light up. Weapons officers begin the unlock sequence for Trident missiles. If the final launch order arrives, this submarine can fire 24 missiles in under 90 seconds. Each missile carries 8 warheads. That's 192 nuclear detonations from one boat. The crew is silent. The only sound is the hum of ventilation and the faint ping of sonar. They have rehearsed this moment hundreds of times, but rehearsals don't prepare them for the real thing, for the knowledge that if they turn these keys, millions of people will perish. The captain stares at the authentication codes. He's been in the Navy for 23 years. He's commanded this boat for 2. He believes the message is real. The protocols have been followed. The codes are correct. But he also knows that once he orders a launch, there's no taking it back. The missiles will fly, the warheads will detonate, and whether the Soviets actually attacked or not, they will respond. And then the world ends. He does not give the final order yet. He waits for confirmation. Above him, on board Air Force One, wherever it is right now, secure phones are ringing. The President of the United States is being woken up. Advisors are being assembled. The nuclear football, the briefcase containing launch authorization codes, is being opened. Someone is going to have to make a decision, soon. And that decision will be based on data that started with the officer in Cheyenne Mountain, on his console, at 2:26 a.m. Data that came from machines that said confirmed, actual, high confidence. Data he passed up the chain because he followed protocol, and the entire
Military apparatus of the United States, bombers, missiles, submarines, is moving toward nuclear launch because the system believes what he reported. But he's starting to realize Something is very, very wrong. At 2:29 a.m., the red phone rings again. Station 6, this is command. We need absolute confirmation. Other stations are reporting conflicting data. Verify your threat assessment. The officer freezes. Conflicting data. He looks at Davis. What are other stations showing? Davis pulls up a secondary feed. His face goes pale. Station 4 is reporting no launches. Station 9 is showing clear skies. The first officer's stomach drops. He looks at his own screen, still red, still showing 200+ inbound warheads. How is that possible? He whispers. Davis is already pulling up diagnostic logs. His fingers are shaking as he types. Check signal origin, the first officer says. Davis scrolls. His eyes widen. It's coming from internal feed. Not satellite, not radar, internal. The officer feels cold. Pull up system status. Davis does. And there it is. A training simulation file. Loaded into the live threat feed 3 minutes ago. File name, Full-Scale Attack Scenario 03. Someone ran a test, a war game, a training exercise, and the system fed it into the live operational network. The display isn't showing a Soviet attack, it's showing a training tape. The officer grabs the red phone. Command, this is Station 6. We have identified the source. This is not, repeat, not an actual threat. We have a system error. Training data was routed into live operations. The alert is false. Repeat, false alert. There's silence on the other end. Then, confirm false alert? Affirmative, false alert. Training data, no hostile launches detected. Another pause. Longer this time. Acknowledged. Stand by. He sits back. His heart is hammering so hard he can feel it in his ears. Davis is staring at his screen. "Oh my God," he says quietly. "We almost..." "Don't," the first officer cuts him off. But he's thinking the same thing. For 3 minutes, the United States military was moving toward nuclear launch. Bombers were preparing to take off. Missile crews were unlocking silos. Submarines were at firing depth. All because a training tape got loaded into the wrong system. At 2:31 a.m., stand-down orders are transmitted. At Barksdale Air Force Base, bombers are powered down. Crews are ordered to secure weapons and return to standby. In Montana, the 2 officers in the missile silo remove their keys. They lock them back in the safe. They sit in silence. On the submarine, the captain receives the stand-down. He orders missile systems to safe mode. He exhales for the first time in 5 minutes. The machine is shutting down. The ladder is retracting. The world is not ending today. But it almost did. And the reason it didn't, the only reason, is that someone noticed the data didn't make sense. Someone looked at conflicting reports and called for verification instead of just following protocol. If everyone had trusted the machines, if everyone had followed the checklist exactly, if no one had questioned the timing, the pattern, the impossible coordination of a 200-missile first strike, the bombers might have launched. And once they're in the air, once Soviet radar sees American bombers approaching their borders with nuclear weapons, the Soviets respond. They launch their own missiles. And then it doesn't matter anymore whether the first alert was real or fake. The war happens anyway. The officer sits at his console. His hands are still trembling. He reaches for his coffee. It's cold. He drinks it anyway. His shift has 4 hours left. He logs the incident in the official record book: equipment malfunction, training data routed to live operations, false alert, stand-down issued at 02:31. Clinical, procedural, like nothing happened. But his hands won't stop shaking. The sun comes up at 6:47 a.m. He doesn't see it. He's still inside the mountain. His shift ends at 7. He logs off. He walks down the long concrete tunnel toward the exit.
The air outside is cold and thin. He stands in the parking lot for a minute staring at the sky. It's blue. Clear. Normal. Most people in America have no idea what almost happened. They're waking up, making coffee, getting kids ready for school, going to work. They slept through it. He drives home. He doesn't turn on the radio. He parks in his driveway. He sits in the car for 5 minutes before he goes inside. His wife asks how his shift was. He says, fine, quiet. He doesn't tell her. He can't tell her. It's classified. He takes a shower. He tries to sleep. He can't. He keeps seeing the red screen, the launch indicators, the timer counting down. He keeps thinking, what if no one had checked it? Over the next few days, the incident is investigated. The fault is identified. A training tape was accidentally loaded into a live data system during a software update. The technician who loaded it followed procedure. The system accepted it because the authentication codes were valid for training purposes. But the system didn't recognize the difference between training mode and operational mode. The error is corrected. New safeguards are added. Protocols are revised. But the truth remains that for 3 minutes, the most powerful military in the world was seconds away from nuclear launch because of a clerical error, a training tape. Not a Soviet attack, not a calculated first strike, not even a deliberate malfunction. A tape in the wrong slot. And here's the part that should be understood. This wasn't the only time. There were other false alarms. Other nights where radar glitches, satellite errors, or computer malfunctions made it look like nuclear war had started. In 1980, a faulty computer chip at NORAD caused another false alarm. This one showed 2,200 Soviet missiles inbound. Again, bombers prepared for launch. Again, the alert was canceled, this time with less than 2 minutes to spare. In 1983, a Soviet early warning system mistook sunlight reflecting off clouds for American missile launches. A lieutenant colonel named Stanislav Petrov decided against protocol to report it as a false alarm rather than pass it up the chain. He was right. If he'd followed procedure, the Soviets might have launched. In 1995, Russian radar detected a single missile rising off the Norwegian coast. It was a scientific research rocket, but for 4 minutes, Russian command thought it was a nuclear-armed Trident missile. President Boris Yeltsin activated the nuclear briefcase. Missile crews went on alert. At the last second, someone realized the trajectory was wrong. Stand down. Humanity is here today because individuals, people sitting at consoles, holding phones, reading data, chose to hesitate, chose to question, chose to say, wait, this doesn't make sense. The system doesn't have that instinct. The system is designed to react fast, to retaliate before the missiles hit, to follow protocol. The system almost ended everything, multiple times. It was people who stopped it. The officer thinks about that as he lies in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. He keeps seeing the red screen, the launch indicators, the timer counting down. He keeps thinking, what if no one had checked it? Most people will never know how close the world came on November 9th, 1979. But he knows. The people in that room know. The bomber crews know. The missile officers know. The submarine captains know. And they all go back to work the next day because someone has to watch the screens. Someone has to sit in the silos. Someone has to be ready. That's the job. Even if the job almost ended the world.